and mystery novels are Nikki's passion. Her first novel, Nothing Bad Happens Here, features journalist Miller Hatchett and is set on the Coromandel Coast of New Zealand. And it was a finalist in the 2018 Ngaio Marsh Award for Best First Novel. Her second book, No One Can Hear You, was longlisted for the Ngaio Marsh Award for Best Novel in 2019. And she's just signed a 2-book deal with Harper Collins Australia. And she's reading for us today from her latest release, The Murder Club.
This is the second in the Miller Hatcher series of books, and I'll start from chapter 1. Inside the wardrobe, he held the scarf to his face and breathed in the scent. He fancied it still smelled like her all those years on, which he knew couldn't be right. He opened his eyes wide as if the action would make him see what he could feel around him. Shoes lined up in neat pairs, most of them flat, leather, sensible. Heavy winter coats and light summer dresses. He clung to this scarf, cheap nylon, a garish pattern, made to look chic all those years ago. It anchored him. He'd done this before. He had carved out space on the wardrobe floor, pushed shoes aside and crouched in wait. The hems of dresses and trousers sat on his shoulders. The scent of her, mingled with leather, was so pleasant he found himself inhaling, eyes shut, a hint of a smile on his face. Then a burst of light flashed behind his eyes. He held his skull, one hand on either side, scarf tickling his face. The pain was gone as fast as it had come, but left him breathless, sweat on his upper lip and prickling his underarms. He focused on the noises of her home in an attempt to recover, the roof above cracking and cooling after a day of roasting in the unseasonal November heat. Floorboards creaking as she made her way around the house, taps running, dishes being done. It didn't take long, dinner for one. He listened as she stood at the front door calling Misty, as he'd seen her do all this week, watching as a streak of ginger emerged from the bushes and ran into the house, the TV finally being turned off. Footsteps down the hallway. He adjusted his position, rising to stand. Stooped, careful not to set off an alarm of wire coatings. Taps being run, gargling in the bathroom, spitting, toilet flushing, footsteps down the hall, towards her bedroom, towards him. He had it planned out, he'd imagined it so many times it played like a movie in his head. It was almost as good as the real thing. He'd always had a good imagination. A sliver of light appeared under the wardrobe door as she entered her bedroom. He forced himself to breathe shallowly and evenly. He felt a bead of sweat run down the side of his face and inserted a finger inside the back black beanie and scratched at his head. He knew there was a possibility she'd open her wardrobe to put something away or get clothes out for work the next day. He was ready for that. It would be fine, but not the same. He stuffed the scarf into his back pocket, hands raised in front of him, but she didn't open the wardrobe. Another indication that this was meant to be. He heard her humming the lyrics to a song he wasn't familiar with and whispering to Misty, who meowed in return. Her only company in bed that night, and as far as he knew from talk around town, the only thing she'd had in bed with her for the last 6 months. He heard the light being switched off. She wasn't a reader, didn't have a TV in her room, one of those peoples whose rooms are for sleeping in and nothing else. He listened as she made herself comfortable, trying a few positions, sighing, and then 10 minutes later the steady melodic sound of her breathing, telling him she was asleep. His hands shook, not from nerves but excitement. The adrenaline made him strong, powerful. He stepped forward and pushed open the wardrobe door. The room was only slightly lighter. He could make out the bed in front of him, the tall boy to his left. He was a murky figure in the mirror to his right. He pulled the pen light from his back pocket and switched it on. It wasn't bright enough to wake her, but enabled him to see where he was going, not trip on an abandoned pair of shoes and give her a chance to fight back or run. He'd thought of everything. Misty sat up on the end of the bed, golden eyes wide in the light of the torch. He crept down the right side of the bed and shone a light on her face. Her eyelids flickered and her smooth forehead creased. Pocketing the torch, he flicked on the bedside light and a ring of lights surrounded them, a spotlight on the stage.
sleep tonight. So you're a small town girl writing small town crime, and I imagine living in a small town would be like having a cell phone recording your every move. Is it true that everybody knows everybody and everything, and does that hinder your plots?
I was born in Cambridge and I live there now, but I grew up in a little town called Otahonga, which is about 45 minutes south of Hamilton. And it is like every stereotype you think a small town is. There's the gossip and the grapevine, and everyone knows everyone, which can be a good thing, but it can also be not so nice. With regard to hindering a plot, I kind of thought small towns, what I write would hinder it. So my first book, Nothing Bad Happens Here, which is the first in the Miller Hatcher series, was set in a small Coromandel Coast town, and it wasn't going to be a series, but people seemed to like the character, so I went with it. And I wanted to write a serial killer kind of book, and I automatically assumed it should take place in a city, so I was going to set it in a city. But at the time, a UK publisher was looking at this series of books, and I sent him the synopsis, and he'd already read Nothing Bad Happens Here, and he said, no city, want the small town. And when I thought about it, I was like, oh, okay, how do I do this? But it's perfect. I don't think there's anything better than living in a small town. This town, Lentford, has about 2,000 or 3,000 people, and there's a man killing women, getting into their houses at night, and just that small town aspect, the fact that these people probably know who it is. So yeah.
Makes it even harder to sleep tonight knowing that. Thank you. So you have 3 books out now, the first of which came out in 2017, and I know you have 2 more in the wings with Harper Collins. Are we to expect a Lee childish time frame from you, 1 a year, or how do you manage your time so well?
I think the self-publishing thing, so I self-published my first 3 books, and I never really put any pressure on myself. I kind of, I wrote Nothing Bad Happens Here, and I had an idea for my next one and published it. I think it was a little bit closer to 2 years for the Murder Club because of COVID. So I've written To the Sea, which is out in December with Harper Collins, which is all very exciting, and I got a 2-book deal with them and celebrated as you would. It was a dream come true, but about 24 hours later, or less, I was like, oh shit, I need to write another book, and it needs to be as good as the one that they've just taken on. So I kind of feel the pressure a little bit, but I'm working on that now, and I think I work okay under pressure. We'll see.
So it's Nikki Crutchley.
Yeah, not just Nikki Crutchley.
Excellent.